Welcome to Parenting Matters with McCracken. Today we're going to talk about laying a foundational context for correction. And we're going to be looking at the parenting pyramid by the Arbinger Institute. There's a link under this video that will take you there and you can look at it in more detail. But we want to start by saying that there are two types of questions when it regards correcting our children. Question number one is, what should I do now that something has gone wrong? This is a reactive question, and it's not a bad question. It's in fact a very good question, and if we're asking it as parents, that's a good thing. But the other kind of question is something like, how do I help things go right? This is a proactive question, and if we consider this from the beginning, then we will actually minimize the number of times we will need to ask the reactive question, and we will set our child up for greater success in life. Reactive questions are things like, how do I get my children to stop fighting? How can I get my kid to do his homework? How can I get my kid to come home on time? What do we do when our children don't do their chores? These are reactive kind of questions. And again, they're good, but there's another kind of question, and that's the proactive question. And these are the kind of questions that are like, how do we help our children be more responsible? How do we help our children love each other? How do we get our children to understand and to like the idea that they are part of team family? How do we get our children to be more compassionate? How do we help our children develop their strengths? These are proactive questions, and these are the kind of questions that not just help us know what to do when something goes wrong. It helps us to know how to support our children and how to lead our children in helping them to do what's right. Now, which of these questions do you think are the most important, the reactive questions or the proactive? And let's say they're both important, but if you had to choose, which one would you say is the most important? Because the key to effective parenting is to spend the focus of our attention and energy and time on the proactive questions. Not just asking the questions, but answering them, and not just answering them, but doing them. So when we focus our energy and our time and our intelligence on helping things go right, rather than simply handling them once they've gone wrong, we're providing a context for correction that will be good for our children and good for us. So along the way here, we're going to answer 4 helpful questions. And today we're just going to look at question number 1, which is, am I correcting my children without teaching them? Because the default method that most of us go to is something goes wrong, we move right into correction. But we're wondering today if it might not be more helpful to provide a firmer foundation and a broader context for the correction that we bring. And the first question implies that that first layer under correction would be teaching. Because the most important fact for us to understand today, no matter what method of discipline that we're using, is that the effectiveness of our correction will always depend on the effectiveness of our prior teaching of our children. The better we proactively teach our children, the less mistakes they will make and the less reactive corrections we will need to make. And when we do need to make them, it'll be easier because of what's gone before. This is because whatever correction that we will be doing will be an extension of our teaching. And all healthy correction, all healthy discipline is not about punishment. It's not about retribution. It's not about making them pay for the bad thing they did or how they inconvenienced us. It's about teaching them, training them to do what's right. If you're familiar with the word disciple, you see the similarity between the word disciple and the word discipline. And that is because it's the same root word. And a disciple simply means a student, one who learns. And to discipline means to teach so that they will learn. So if we adopt this mindset, instead of seeing our children as disloyal, irrational, or ungrateful burdens who need to be punished, we will take the mindset of they're children who have just not yet learned. And the emotional nature of our correction will now be more loving and helpful than impatient and angry. So the most important thing we can learn about correction is its relationship to teaching. Now that's one layer, that's one question. And I just want to close by saying that there are both formal and informal ways of teaching our children. We can have planned, organized, formal instruction, or there may be spontaneous teachable moments where we can communicate truth, direction, guidance, to help our children know what's right. One example that came to my mind is one time when my kids were younger and into Pokemon, I took them, and especially the boys, to the Pokemon movie that came out. And I think I took a couple of their friends. That movie started out with 4 amazing questions. Question number 1, who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going? And what is my purpose or my destiny? What amazing questions to start a kid's film with. And so I thought, as the film was going on, I want to have a discussion with my kids on the way home. So on the way home in the car, we talked about these questions, and from a Christian perspective, what would be the answer to these questions? So that was a very kind of spontaneous, something I wasn't planning to do, didn't expect to even come out of this movie that I had no interest in seeing. But because my kids were into it, I went. And I've always been kind of a firm believer in, watching things together with my kids and then discussing them afterwards. But what this turned into was a tradition that on our dates that I would have with each of my kids, I just regularly ask these 4 questions of my kids. Who are you? Where did you come from? Where are you going? And what's your purpose or destiny? And they learned, and if you go to them today as adults and ask them these questions, they will give you the answers that we not only learned, but discussed their meaning together. Who am I? I'm a child of God. Where did I come from? I came from the heart and the mind of God. Where am I going? I'm going to spend eternity with Him. And what's my purpose or destiny? To glorify God in all that I do. Now, this didn't have anything to do with correcting their behavior. That's not really the point. My point is there are formal, planned teaching moments, and there are informal, spontaneous teaching moments. And when we spend time teaching our children in both of these ways, it provides a layer of foundation and a context in which we can do better correction and more effective correction with our children. We'll look at the second layer next time.